the House of Representatives member from Brunswick. Representative Jeff Jones, thanks for being with us, Jeff.
John, thank you for being in the Golden Isles. And as you said, this is God's country, and we have many, many pretty parts of Georgia, but I'll tell you, this is the most beautiful part. Great place to live.
Senator William Ligon, Jeff, with us. And one of the questions we had from, I guess, was Mike and Noonan, who said, why don't you guys start an impeachment hearing for Raffensperger, the Secretary of State? Of course, that starts in the House. You want to respond to Mike and Noonan?
I would agree that the actions of our senior state leadership have been baffling, to say the least. Clearly, the will of the people has been, over these past several weeks, that we expect our state leadership at the highest level to act on behalf of and in response to what the people are asking for. And it seems, quite frankly, that these calls by the citizenry has fallen on deaf ears. So to specifically answer the question about impeachment proceedings, while I personally have my feelings about our lack of leadership at the state level and moving forward to do something, because there are avenues that we could move ahead and do something, we cannot get a consensus, even a simple majority consensus among either House members or Senate members to call a special session. The sequence of events would be 3/5 of the House of the General Assembly could call a special session. That was stopped by the Speaker of the House at the Republican caucus meeting the week after the November 3rd election. They announced they were not going to attempt or push for a special session. Going forward, the governor has said he won't call a special session, yet in subsequent press releases he says and calls for a signature audit, which we at the grassroots level, and I will include myself in that effort, we have been working and pushing the Secretary of State to take a next meaningful step in verifying the integrity of this very important election by conducting the signature audit. So, again, specifically to answer the question, we can't get the House together. We could not get a consensus of even a simple majority. So let me mention that. We believe, and I agree with Senator Ligon, and he spearheaded the effort, and I picked it up from the House side, that under the U.S. Constitution, the Georgia General Assembly has plenary powers to control the election laws in the state of Georgia. I believe, as do many other legal scholars and attorneys that I've spoken with, I believe that the consent agreement entered into by the Secretary of State in March of 2020, outside the purview and without the knowledge of the General Assembly, was an illegal and continues to stand as an illegal act. We tried to convene a session to formally denounce that act and to say that our election efforts going forward must be processed, pursued, devoid of that agreement on the books. We tried unsuccessfully earlier this week to get a simple majority of House and Senate members together to convene a special session for 10 o'clock this past Tuesday morning. We couldn't get, I think we got 30 House members and maybe a dozen senators to sign on. We needed 29 senators and 91 House members. I personally don't understand why our state representatives in particular, well, senators as well, are not listening to, I know, is the screams from their constituents, from our constituents, that the General Assembly must act. So to answer your question, we can't get the General Assembly convened to deal with the illegalities of what we're dealing with, nevertheless to begin impeachment proceedings.
Jeff Jones, state representative of the Brunswick area. Jeff, you're the first rep I've had on that absolutely nailed this. President Trump called David Ralston, we understand, earlier in the week. Ralston said, well, if the Senate gets to 29, I can get to 91. Whether or not he could do that, I don't know. You guys only got, 20-something in the House. And in the
30.
Senate, they needed 29. And Bill Ligon, part of the petition, you guys maxed out at 12. And so, Jeff, you nailed it. And so is Senator Ligon. I've been here for 5 weeks. I've gotten hundreds of calls from Georgians. They're pissed off. They want action. And you couldn't get over 50% in either body. And so people don't understand that, Jeff. They're like, why would under 50% of our own Republicans not want to do this? Or under 50% of the caucus where you don't need a single Democratic vote. You needed 29 to 34 Republicans. He got 12 because Butch Miller squashed it. Jeff Duncan, we understand, was threatening people there about chairmanships. And then you got 27 in the House. That's a joke. All right, Jeff, thank you.
Well,
Go ahead.
We did get 30 in the House.
I'm sorry.
But
you got 30.
I know it's okay. I did. What's three?
No, it's a lot.
Signatures. We fell far short of the 91, but we're pretty sure that Speaker Ralston, who runs the House with an iron fist, and he uses the brass ring as his way of controlling House members. Unfortunately and sadly, and I hate to say this, but I have seen this firsthand in my years of experience now in the House, is we have House members who are more concerned about being in the good graces of the leadership than they are of doing the right thing and taking a stand and listening to the people that they represent. It's a sad commentary, but it is indeed the fact.
Senator Ligon, we understand that's the same thing that happened in the Senate. I've had several senators on background, can't say their names, tell me that both Butch Miller and Jeff Duncan, Cosmo man with a $5,000 Armani suit that runs over to CNN, was threatening senators with chairmanships, with leadership, with kicking them out of committees, that they were going to get blackballed. I don't know. I mean, I've had not one senator tell me that, several tell me that. I'm not going to ask you to confirm it, Bill. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I heard that. But it's kind of the same thing in both houses.
Well, the argument was, under the state constitution, you have to have the 3/5 of legislators in order to convene a special session. We were saying, well, look, we're not proceeding under the Georgia Constitution. We're proceeding under the federal Constitution that says that the power to control these elections are determined by the state legislatures. And when you start putting conditions on it by other state laws or constitutions, you're thwarting that purpose. And if you need to cast those electoral votes and you can't because you can't get a 3/5 majority, then you can't vote. And so the concern was, well, if we do that, we'll wind up in litigation. Well, then what can't happen is that Texas filed the lawsuit. So here we have the litigation, and these very issues that would have been raised within that special session are all of a sudden before the Supreme Court. So in essence, the battlefield changed. There was a shift there from legislature to court. And so some of us thought, well, here we have it. Let's take advantage of this and let's participate in that litigation. Let's lend our weight and our thought and our opinions and present that to the court, and hopefully they'll take it up and review it and give us a good result. So we'll just have to see.
Let's get to line one. Open the phone lines up here for Jeff Jones and Senator Ligon. Let's get to line one. Nancy in Atlanta. Nancy, you're live.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, Senator Representative, for coming on and for all that you've done. We really appreciate it. But I would like to voice that I still think you're not getting it and being public enough. I don't understand why you don't come out and organize like a Stop the Steal rally in Atlanta or in your local districts to get your constituents out, because all we see is, excuse my term, but pretty boy Jeff Duncan going on mainstream media. What is the rest of the country and the world seeing? We're finally hearing you here just in our own state because we have John, but they're hearing him. Get out there, rally with us. Talk about this on your courthouse steps in every courthouse in Georgia. Get the message out. We're losing the propaganda war, or whatever those words are you call it. I'm learning all this stuff right now. But you can hear my passion, and a lot of us in Georgia have it, and I'm starting to hear it in your voices. But I still hear a lot of words of if, or we're trying, or whatever. And I appreciate you getting behind the legislative thing, but you've got a job to do. Get out there and protest with us. Get some exposure. Get on TV. That's what we need, in my opinion. Thank you, John.
Oh, Nancy, thank you. Well, certainly Jeff Duncan, Cosmo man with his hair perfectly in place and his $5,000 Armani suit. He gets on TV every day, runs over to CNN. Obviously, I'm not a fan. Let's start with Jeff Jones. Jeff, if you could grow up one day and be like Jeff Duncan, you too could go on CNN every day, Jeff.
I would be happy, and I can't just. I don't have a $5,000 Armani suit. Steinmark's my store of choice, and I hate the fact that they've gone into bankruptcy. I get compliments on my my Steinmart wardrobe. But in any case, and I think my haircuts cost under $20. But in any case, the caller is correct. I mean, I have not been invited on any national, even state TV programs. I have, however, been very, very vocal, as has Senator Ligon, in social media. I have a huge following on several groups and parts of a number of groups that have. And in fact, I've gotten calls from North Georgia based upon my posts and calls for efforts on convening the special session, conducting a signature audit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Undertook the campaign, and we got, I don't know how many, but hundreds and I hope thousands of letters and emails sent to the Secretary of State over the past couple of weeks, demanding from the citizens' perspective that the Secretary of State authorize the signature audit that we believe would have been, and still could be, a key step in verifying the validity of the election that we held on November 3rd. So short of being on TV and on radio, we've both been working to try to rally the troops, getting the word grassroots level to our senior state leadership that we expect action, and we've been quashed at every turn. Frustrating.
Define squashed.
Well, the Secretary of State, through my inside contacts in the Secretary of State's office, when I asked the question, why hasn't the Secretary of State called for the signature audit, the response is, and I won't name my source because he's been a good source, but
of course,
don't want to out him.
Of course,
said, well, the Secretary of State is not sure he has the legal authority to do so.
A bunch of nonsense.
Call well, 2 points. If ensuring the integrity of our election is not a primary responsibility of the Secretary of State, then what is? Then number 2, I said, okay, fine. Let's support calling a special session, and we will get the General Assembly to either direct or authorize via legislation the conducting of that signature audit. So we had an answer to that statement by the Secretary of State that he didn't have the authority. Well, we'll give you that authority. Well, crickets from the Secretary of State in terms of that support. Our Secretary of State continues to say publicly, just in the last couple of days, he has restated that he believes that he conducted the most secure election in Georgia's history under his leadership. And I have to ask myself and those of my neighbors and friends and Facebook correspondents and everything else, we're shaking our heads going, are you just simply ignoring the facts that are presented to you in the Senate hearing a week ago and in the House hearing yesterday? It is clearly evident to even anybody who has even the remotest bit of sense that we have rampant fraud. What indeed happened is we had, all it took was fraud in 8 counties, populated Democrat-controlled counties in the key battleground states, to swing the popular vote in those states to change the outcome of the popular vote to Biden. That's all it took. It didn't take a massive effort, although I believe there have been fraud elsewhere, but it was in those 8 counties that we were able to swing. Fulton, DeKalb, some other areas in Georgia were all complicit in that effort to thwart the will of the people in the election held on November 3rd. So we've been, and then the governor has said publicly, he's issued public statements that says, I support a signature audit. So we respond with, okay, then call a special session.
Right.
I'm repeating myself.
No, but you're right. I mean, this is, Jeff, this is what's driving Georgians absolutely berserk, okay? You just nailed it, and so was Senator Ligon. This is really the best segment. I've been in 12 cities in 12 days. Bannon just texted me and said, how are things going in Brunswick, Georgia? I said, I finally hit the main vein of opposition to what's going on here. Finally, after 12 cities. I mean, other than Beach and Cherokee. But you absolutely nailed it. He goes on TV, Kemp, and he says, we need a signature audit. Can I get your permission to do it or something? And then, Raffensperger blows him off. And then all he has to do is call a special session and give you the legal authority to then demand it, and then it would be done. But he doesn't do it. So it's like the words are empty, Jeff. That's what's got people frustrated.
So,
Go ahead,
as
Jeff.
Senator Ligon mentioned, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's fine,
What
sir.
Senator Ligon, I believe, said is, again, we had the steps are 3/5 of the General Assembly can call it. We knew that wasn't going to happen, or
Right.
the governor can call the special session.
Right.
So, again, you nailed it. The governor has said conduct the audit, but yet he does not give us the tools to do so because he has the authority to call the special session. He has said, I am not going to do so. So we have to ask ourselves, what is going on here? What are people hiding? Why do we fear the light of day being shed on the voting abuses that occurred in the state of Georgia? Why? I don't have a good answer for it. I don't want to think that we have leadership that has acted improperly or illegally. I don't want to believe that. But I'm frustrated and flabbergasted that we don't have the kind of response that the people are demanding.
So basically what Governor Kemp did when he went on television and asked politely that the Secretary of State do a signature audit of the envelopes, which he knew would have exposed massive fraud, right? Because a lot of these signatures were not going to get matched. The lawsuit that was just filed in Georgia, you got upwards of 430,000 votes in question, people dead, not living in the city, not registered, underage, signatures don't match, no machine signatures. It goes on and on and on. So basically, Kemp gets on TV and says the right thing. Raffensperger blows him off, but then he had no intention of calling a special session. So those were empty words. And Representative Jeff Jones with us and Senator Bill Ligon from Brunswick, Georgia. Jeff and Bill, that is why people in Georgia are pissed, because they know they've been sold out and they know they've been lied to. I mean, what Brian Kemp did was disingenuous. Oh, I think there should be a signature audit. Please do one. Oh, you're not going to do one? Well, okay, have a good day. Well, call a special session. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. So it was empty words, weasel words. They were meaningless, Jeff, and that's why people are upset.
I think,
Bill?
I'm furious. I really am. At my wit's end as to how we move the ball here, since we are stymied at every turn.
I think that people are looking for their leaders to run to the fight. We need to run to the fight. And as I see it, that's what we're trying to do by intervening and filing our brief showing our support for the state of Texas in the lawsuit that's been filed before the Supreme Court. We want to run to the fight. We want to point out to the court, these are the things that happened in the state of Georgia. These are the things that the people have seen. This is what they're feeling, and there's a problem here, and we're looking to you to give us direction to help solve this. And so I'm hopeful. I want the court to take it up. I want them to hear these arguments. I would like for them to grant the relief that the state of Texas has asked for in that lawsuit.
I've been in Georgia for 5 weeks straight, except for 2 days in Thanksgiving. I'm in the end of a 12-city and 12-day tour. Next week, I'm on a bus tour with the Job Creators Network through Georgia. It took me to get to Brunswick, Georgia, to get the truth finally after 12 days. Jeff, this is reality. I mean, I've been all over the state where senators and representatives get on and the callers call them up and give them hell. I mean, they get blasted for, really not standing behind. I finally get down here and you guys have nailed it. I mean, why don't you have a special session? You can only get 30 signatures. You got pressure being put on people and you got to ask yourself, what are they hiding? And now you've got another 20 drop boxes, unauthorized. You've got, what did you say, Senator Ligon? Mobile buses going around picking up ballots?
In Fulton County, we don't know what. There's no
Who
oversight.
authorized that?
Where's the accountability on that?
Where's the chain of custody for
That's
that?
right.
It doesn't
right.
exist. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well,
Guys,
John,
go ahead, Jeff.
What we have found, by the way, I know you sound like you're trying to wrap up. You've got my number, John. Yep. I am not bashful to speak the truth, and the people who in the district that I represent know that about me. I am frank and will speak the truth. So you've got my number. But let me just, one last thing. You asked earlier, Senator Ligon, about did Secretary of State Raffensperger authorize these boxes? Well, we're not sure he specifically authorized that mobile unit or the boxes. I think basically he's authorized the boxes, but more importantly, he has not unauthorized, or he has not directed that those tools not be used. So by allowing them to be used, he has in essence given tacit approval for the use of those particular mechanisms, which we all agree are insecure, and they lack the chain of custody that is so important and so vital to ensure that your vote, my vote, the votes, without the vote, what do we as citizens have? As you have found, John, in your tour around Texas and in other parts of the country, politicians speak political ease. They don't necessarily speak the truth. And when we contact those elected officials, and I speak for myself in years past, you don't get a response, or you get some blow-off answer. And without the vote, that is all that we have. And we are on the verge of losing that sacred right to vote and voice our opinions at the ballot box and know that they are heard, they are believed, they are truthful, and they are as without fraud as best we can. And we are so close to losing that we're afraid that folks are not going to turn out for the January 5th election. And I want to emphasize now, Republicans, you must turn out to the polls on January 5th. We must elect Loeffler and Perdue. We need to control the Senate to be sure that the radical agenda of the liberal left does not take hold in this country. I personally believe that the citizens of this country do not want to see a fundamental change in the way we run this country. So we've got to get out and vote, and don't be dissuaded by not voting January 5th. Got to vote. And let me just add again, I know you try to wrap up, it sounded like, but I have signed on to the amicus brief and fully support the effort of Senator Ligon and the other senators who have initiated that effort. We simply hope and call on the Supreme Court to do the right thing by the rest of the people of this country and hear that case and let the facts and the evidence be presented to the Supreme Court. As we know, they will reveal massive fraud in the state of Georgia and in the other states that were named in that suit.
Jeff Jones, I want to thank you for your courage and for what you've done.